Welcome, everybody, to this week's edition of the Liberty First Foundation Roundtable. Queen Elizabeth did die, the longest reigning monarch of the of England. She was actually a very popular monarch.
Oh yeah.
With the English or with British, and for her to reign that long and maintain such a high opinion of the citizenry, actually does speak a lot to her.
I honestly don't get it. How hard is it to have a positive, image when you're not really responsible for making any decisions that affect the lives of the constituents? Maybe I'm just too used to the fact that I think I should have some input into who the hell's leading me, rather than following somebody's bloodline because their family has got deeper roots than mine.
No, it's an American view, and that's perfectly fine. I agree. I love America. I have no problem with it. But we are seeing that in many of the territories, like Jamaica, several parts of the world that still are under the British rule, that are making the move towards independence, and they've been saying that very vocally in the last year. And so what we're looking at is if King Charles or Prince William, whichever may continue to move forward, and I think it may be a mix of both in the near term, if they are not able to maintain the United Kingdom and its empire, then we're going to see these individual nations separate, fail, and fall to socialism, which is normally the process that we've been seeing recently, which means global stability will decrease, which will endanger the lives of American citizens. This is how this is important to America. It's something that most people do not think of. And Dow, I think, I know Dow's been overseas. I've been overseas. A lot of people see it when you have lived overseas. You start to see how some of these things are very important down the road about how the dominoes will fall. If they cannot maintain the English rule as it is, we will see greater global destabilization, and we will see greater conflict in the world, which will be bad for every American everywhere in the world. Are we surprised that a pharmaceutical company is taking advantage of the political pandering and fear-mongering that we are seeing coming from the government?
Absolutely. No, absolutely not. But I do, and like I said, we are we're here to bring attention to this type of stuff, okay? And this is very much political in nature. And the very fact that they're doing these videos, like the one that I just put up, shows how they are actually trying to manipulate anything that could be considered controversial to their thing. Now, in 2009, actually in September 2009, the Justice Department announced the largest healthcare fraud settlement in its history. Pfizer paid $2.3 billion for fraudulent marketing. American pharmaceutical giant Pfizer Incorporated and a subsidiary, Pharmacia Upjohn Company, herein together, Pfizer, have agreed to pay $2.3 billion, the largest healthcare fraud settlement in the history of the Justice Department of Justice, to resolve criminal and civil liability arising from the illegal promotion of certain pharmacological products. Pharmacy Upjohn Company has agreed to plead guilty to felony violation of the FDA's Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act for misbranding Bextra with the intent to defraud or mislead. Bextra is an anti-inflammatory drug that Pfizer pulled from the market in 2005 under provisions of the FTC Act. The company must specify the intended use of a product and its new drug application to the FDA. Once approved, the drug may not be marketed or promoted for so-called off-label uses. So right there, okay, is another smoking gun of Pfizer misleading the public.
I don't think it's Pfizer, though. It's not Pfizer. It's the government. They're just taking advantage of the opportunity that exists. Now, you can say that they've done lots of things that have been, and as a former stockbroker, I followed this company since the 90s. And yes, they've done things that are duplicitous, that are incredibly questionable, if not highly illegal. Absolutely. But then again, so is Merck. So is every other major pharmaceutical company. The thing is, when we're looking at what's going on today and what will be going on in the future, it is the fact that we have a government that is so intent on fear-mongering, with a news media that is so intent on making sure people obey and allowing the government to micromanage their lives, that corporations are seeing a window of opportunity, and they are being used as a tool of that opportunity to be able to sell their wares, and they win because the public, you're being micromanaged to death. The government saying, we're going to micromanage your health. By the way, we're going to use this pharmaceutical company to do it. And if it wasn't Pfizer, it was going to be J&J, or it's Merck, or it's one of the others. And there's our problem. Ultimately, the biggest problem for me, and this is just me, isn't the pharmaceutical industry. They are a symptom. They are a tool. My biggest problem comes that there are individuals in our government who have used fear to enable them to micromanage our healthcare and our lives, and have convinced the public that the final say about our individual lives lies with the government and not ourselves. And there's my problem. That's me.
No, I agree. Okay.
There's not much to be expected with a drug that was created essentially overnight and jabbed into the bodies forcefully of most Americans and people worldwide.
We're still in first phase testing.
To see what happens in about 10, 15 years to the human race.
Well, I'm terrified of that, but the fact is, this is essentially the first phase of testing as compared to any other drug process that would normally go on. We've introduced human trials in the first phase of testing.
Yeah.
And that doesn't bode well to consequences.
No.
It doesn't.
That's the case.
So I want to go ahead, Mike, but when you're ready, I want to step back to that comment that Dal was talking about earlier.
Go ahead. Whatever comment you're...
I'm referring to the comment where he talks about the involvement of, right here, as is AstraZeneca, Merck, Bayer, and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Okay. Correct me if I'm wrong. I read up on it. I may be inaccurate. So, if I remember right, Bill Gates, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, had ties to and money in the lab in Wuhan, correct?
Multiple labs throughout the world.
Okay.
Mhm.
And what was it, like a year or two, a couple years before, Bill Gates goes on and is like, the world's not ready for a pandemic. It was, I don't remember how many years before it was, and he just specifically keeps talking about the world's not ready for a pandemic. And I can find a link to the video where he talks about it. And then it was within no time at all that COVID hit.
Yeah.
And so Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation ties in. All of a sudden, there's COVID. They're tied into, because they're tied into Pfizer as well, aren't they?
As well as it's part of his holdings.
So I don't know, there's just way too many things that not enough of Americans are going, hey, wait a second. They're just ignoring it because they're blindly following the science.
Well, because people are not supposed to think anymore. How many times I say it all the time? We're told to obey. Don't question, obey. The government is smarter than the individual. They can micromanage your life better than you can live it.
conform, consume, obey.
Agree that on quite a few things. One of the big things on this that I do have to say on this is nurses are the last line of defense for many patients. Okay. They need to be, and in a lot of cases, they are the only voice of the patient because patients can't. Nurses also have not a level as high as doctors should have, but they do have a level of professional medical knowledge. Okay. They also interact with the patients far more than the doctors do, especially when it comes to doctors that specialize, like cardiologists or orthopedics doctors, etc. Okay. Pulmonary doctors. Nurses will have a lot more time with patients, so they know the patients better than most of the doctors do. So as a result, they know a lot more of the background behind the patient. Okay, they know more of the ins and outs of the patient than the doctors do. So along those lines, they need to be able to speak against a doctor's orders when they find those orders are in error. And if they do raise a concern about a particular order or a particular drug that's been administered or that's going to be administered, or a particular medical procedure that's going to be conducted, if a nurse raises a question questioning whether or not that is the best course of action, then I agree that that nurse should not be held culpable if the doctor orders to proceed with that particular procedure or medication. However, if a nurse does have an issue or knowingly knows that something is being done in error and they don't raise that question, then I do believe they should be held accountable.
Yeah, but let's think about the consequence of this. Because what they have done is they have increased the liability in our healthcare system. They have put a new pressure on nurses that never existed before. Not to say that maybe there is a level of scrutiny that should be put on nurses that maybe hasn't been before because they become more specialized. But that what it's going to do, and the unintended consequence of this, God forbid, both in North Carolina, and God forbid it's going to be in California, and New York, Illinois, in Maryland, and the rest of the progressive strongholds, and lightning fast, mark my words, is that this is going to increase the cost of health care for the average person. Because now nurses have to get the same medical malpractice insurance doctors do. And the number one cause in the last 2 decades in the cost of health care has always been, and is number one, is the cost of medical malpractice insurance. And that means the poor are now going to be priced out of even more healthcare choices than ever before. This is going to negatively impact tens of millions of people because they have now said, oh, nurses need malpractice insurance because they're liable. The expectations have been raised and a new burden has been put upon them. And people are going to get hurt because of this. I think they've gone the wrong direction. This is going to be bad. This is equitable grading. This is going to destroy our school system, and they are trying to implement this now. The AP came out and said, no, they're not, Illinois school system is not going to do this in 2023. No, they're planning it for 2024, and some of their teachers are already doing it right now. I did the research on all of this, have all of the sources for this. This is insane. And they're trying to convince us that this is the right thing to do because systemic racism, because black people are less than, and the government will fix this by just ruining our school system. My God, when people say equity anything, they are evil, they are oppressing you, and they are pushing forward this idea that if you happen to be a woman, a person of color, any kind of minority, by whatever description you want to name it, you are inferior, and only the government can take care of your life because you can't figure out how to do it for yourself. I hate this stuff.
Okay, now do affirmative action.
I don't believe it. I don't get rid of it. I don't believe it. I have never believed in affirmative action.
I am lumping those two together. Equitable grading and affirmative action.
They're the same thing. Affirmative action, equal rights for women, feminism right now, critical race theory, every single one of these issues, all of it being equity of some form or another, is de facto stating that someone is less than human and only the government can take care of their lives. I hate it. It's evil. I denounce it all.
And here's the thing. In order to create equity, you must create inequality.
Yes. Yes. It is a definition.
Okay. The two are inversely proportional. When you create more equity, you create less equality.
Yes.
Period.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So all these people that talk about equality, whenever they mention equity, you can tell right then that they do not want equality.
No.
In fact, they want the exact opposite of equality whenever you talk about equity.
Well, they want to give those particular groups at whatever one they're talking about in that sentence superiority.
No, they don't.
Nothing to do with equity.
No, they don't even want to give. See, they want to give them the my belief, Jeremy, is
Okay.
they want to give them the illusion of superiority.
There you go. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, because in fact, by definition, anyone who is supporting equality, whether it's social justice, reform, well, I don't care how you want to word it. If you're pushing the idea of equality, you are removing, not equality, equity. Anyone who's pushing the idea of equity is stating that they do not believe in equality. They don't believe in equality of opportunity. They are saying that the individuals that are being affected are less than. They are giving them this illusion of superiority, saying, we will place you above others, therefore destroying equality. But it's only as long as a specific group of elites are in government to maintain that level, to micromanage their lives and every decision in their life. And if that group of elites ever disappear, they will lose this superiority that has been artificially created by government action, and that they have not justified by their actions or the outcomes that come from it.
Well, that's because when it comes from an individual level, it's classified as racism, sexism, whatever you want to call it. So if the government does it, it's okay. But if you or I or Mike or anyone else does it, it's racist, it's sexist, it's bigoted, it's whatever it is. So it has to be controlled by the government because then it's okay.
Well, actually, you both bring up a good point.
Let's be honest, though. Straight people, white people, Christians, Republicans will never be a protected group.
Okay, well, yes, except for those, every other group is at some point going to also be negatively impacted by this.
That's correct.
Because, I mean, I forgot that all of those groups, which at least a couple of them include me, are devils. And we know this because Joe Biden just told us in his best imitation of the Emperor Palpatine in Philadelphia, straight out of Star Wars, straight out of 1939 Germany, and said it's for the world. Yes, we are going to imperially persecute all these people who disagree with us because they are evil. Here comes Kristallnacht. And I know you guys know what that is. For people who don't know what it is, it's German. think of the night of broken glass. Look it up. It's historical, and we are right on the edge of that, I believe.
It's historical and it's terrifying.